Securities offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through CWM, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Carson Partners, a division of CWM, LLC, is a nationwide partnership of advisors. This is the Way to Wealth, with host Scott Ford, a jiu-jitsu fighting, woodworking, beekeeping entrepreneur who is also the managing director, partner, and wealth advisor of Carson Wealth. Financial freedom is the goal, and clarity and simplicity is how we'll get there. Let's get to it. This is Way to Wealth.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Way to Wealth podcast, episode 1. Super excited to kick this off. I think I'll start today with a little bit of a backstory, like Way to Wealth, what is that? And what it is it's all about making money simple. And it's all about making money simple so you can live life now, focused, to me, on health, wealth, wisdom, and happiness, and using money as a tool. So what this podcast is going to be is all about making money simple. There's a backstory to this. Started a long time ago, actually. I was coming home from school, middle school, and had my backpack on, and I'm walking in, go in the front door and start walking up the steps, and my mom's at the kitchen table crying. And I've seen my mom cry maybe 3 times in my entire life, so I knew it was something serious. So I didn't ask, I just went to my room and continued about my business, and then I could overhear it had to do with finances. Mom and Dad were actually filing bankruptcy. So that left an indelible mark and impression on me at a young age of, gosh, money can be painful and challenging. The other thing I'll say is Dad also, of course, was part of that and struggled with money. And when I look back at their life, they didn't really have as much freedom as they could have had. Great people, great human beings. Did their best raising 5 kids, did a great job with it. Dad was actually a minister and then got into insurance to be able to pay his bills, so he was a small business owner as well. But they lacked freedom, and they lacked freedom because money was complicated. So that really set me on a quest at a young age to say, does it really need to be this complicated? And that's what we do today. I mean, literally from that young age to today, I've always been on a quest to make money simple so people could live fully and have freedom to do and live the life that they want. And so that's really the genesis of this whole thing, the Way to Wealth. And when I think about good memories, one of the things you're going to hear me ask guests is, what's a memory that may be challenging in childhood, and what's a memory that is good from childhood regarding money? So I just gave you one that was challenging for me with my parents having to file bankruptcy. I give you a good one. So I mentioned my dad was a minister, and so at a young age, he sent me to a youth camp. I was maybe 5th grade, 6th grade, something like that. I was young. And I remember going, and I had like $10, and I had used 5 of it. They didn't give me a ton of money, but a lot of the meals and stuff were provided. And at the end, this is like the last night, they were taking up money for some missions trip or some missions thing. And I can remember going, I got $5 and that's all I have. And like, we got to drive back home and I got to eat and drink something. But I was like, you know what? I feel the right thing to do. I'm going to give it. I'm just going to do it. And I did. I put the $5. I walked up, put it in the plate. Came back to my seat, felt good about it. Literally about an hour later after the event shut down, someone comes up and gives me a $10 bill. That's 100% return. That's not why I did it, but my point is that also left a mark on me at a very young age that's a good memory of money and that giving is good. And I think of Robert Kiyosaki's book and a lot of his teachings of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One, it's all about cash flow, but also he talks about giving. It just creates this sense of abundance, and the universe has a way of giving that back. It's not why you do it, but it just works that way. So that's a good memory of money when it comes of things that I can think about. And you're going to hear me ask guests these questions moving forward, but they're mine. So again, where's this coming from? It's all about making money simple. I want to talk a little bit about the name, the Way to Wealth. And I developed this process the whole way back in 2002 when I was in Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan, creating a unique process of making money simple. And I called it the Way to Wealth because someone that I'm a big fan of is Benjamin Franklin. And he's got a book called the Way to Wealth. And I thought, this is really powerful, and it's simplistic, and some of these meanings and definitions, they're endless, they're timeless. And so I thought, I'm going to use that name, but I'm going to recreate it, make it my own, and repackage it. So instead of the Way and T-O Wealth, it's the Way, the number 2 Wealth. But that's where it came from. And when I think about Benjamin Franklin, really, he was a small business owner. He was a printer. And one of the cool things he did is he sold his printing press at a young age and then really lived life fully. And that's so cool, because that's what this is all about. It's like, let's figure out the money game. Let's get to a position where we're economically independent or financially free, and let's really live today. And that's exactly what he did. So candidly, I didn't know that when I used the name, but since reading more material about him, that's exactly the case. So let's jump in. Let's look into the Way to Wealth, the actual process. How do we make money simple? That's the why behind it. You're also going to hear me talk more about health, wealth, wisdom, and happiness. But let's look at the Way to Wealth. So here's how it's broken down. So if you think of the Way, that's very intentional. And that's why we use that and named it the Way. The Way stands for the Taoist philosophy of being in harmony with all things and living now, living in the present moment. Most in our industry are focused on 30 years from now. If you save money, someday, one day, maybe you're going to have a great life. And it's great to plan for the future and important and meaningful, but we only ever have today. So when you think about the future and you think maybe you're thinking of retirement, well, guess what? That's going to be today. So we're really intentional about being in the present moment. Today's all you got. Let's live life to its fullest, and let's use money to do that. So it's not just about 30 or even 10 years from now. How can we use money today to help in health, wealth, wisdom, and happiness, to live life fully and have complete time and money freedom? So that's the Way. The 2 is the number 2. And the idea here is most people in our industry work in silos. So whether that's a CPA or an estate planning asset protection attorney or an investment person, they're working individually. And then what happens, there's typically gaps. There's things that aren't working together. So we have a belief that the game is really won or lost based off the team that you have. So what I like to suggest, just like in business, you want A players on your team and in the right seats, as Jim Collins would say. It's the same thing on your financial team. You want A players on your team and in the right seat. And once you get there, again, the game is really won or lost. And you get A players and in the right seat, the game's really, really won there. So that's the 2 in Way to Wealth, is getting the right team assembled and delegating to them what they do best. The wealth then, once we get the Way, once we get the team assembled, then the wealth is really about an acronym. So if you think of wealth, it's an acronym. So the W in wealth, in the Way to Wealth, is what is your foundation? So we start with 6 building blocks, and what is your foundation? The first is tax. So we look at a tax reduction plan. So we're auditing and looking, how can we save money in taxes? Then we go to estate plan and legacy. And when you think of estate planning, it's not just a legal document, and it's not just leaving money to the next generation. We're talking estate and legacy. How can you leave core values? How can you leave things that you've learned through your life? So we literally focus on helping people set up a family constitution. So a mission statement, a vision statement, and a family constitution, things you want to pass down besides money. Then if you think asset protection, a lot of people just say, hey, I can get you a better rate of return, but if we don't have these things buttoned up, so like asset protection, as an example, you could leave and bump into someone and get sued and lose everything that you've tried to accumulate. So we want to make sure that's part of the foundation of the W in Way to Wealth. Then if you look at insurance maximization, most people are like, gosh, I don't want to pay more than I need to in insurance. Of course you don't. But you want as much coverage as you can get for the least cost. So we call this piece of this brick in the foundation insurance maximization. Let's get the most coverage we can so that you can sleep good at night and you're covered, but do that for the lowest cost that you can. Then we look at interest rate and credit. We look at an interest rate and credit review. We want to make sure that your interest is efficient, so you're not paying more than what you have. It's working together. We can do a credit review to make sure your rating's higher as high as we can get it, and there's ways to do that, which ultimately can get you better interest rates. And so just being proactive there. The other thing I'll add on interest rate and credit review is we talk about how do you set up your own family bank? How do you set up a system where instead of sending interest to the bank, can you set up your own bank and actually get interest flowing back into your economy and to you and your family? Lastly, the sixth piece of the brick and what is your foundation is cash flow and control, which in the money game, in my mind, it's all about cash flow and control. And by doing these 5 bricks first, the idea is efficiency. So how do we create more efficiency, which will ultimately save money to put more cash flow and into your control? And look, what most people miss here is opportunity costs. So if you're spending more or paying more in taxes than you need to be paying, do you get that sent back to you the following year? Not so much. So it's gone. And that's really important. What if it's $10,000 as an example? That money's gone forever. But if you had that back in your control and compounding with interest, what's that gonna be in 10, 20 years? It's a big number. So efficiency's key. That's why we start there. Then the foundation's built. Then we go to E in Way2Wealth. The E is establish savings. So we're big believers. We use a 3-bucket approach for people in money. And the E is establish savings. We start there. Most people talk about savings and investing being the same thing. They're not. So people are like, I am saving. I'm putting money in my 401k. That's not savings. That's investing. Here's the definition from our vantage point. Investing, you're wanting to get a good rate of return and you're taking some risk to do that. Savings, you want access to that money. You want a favorable rate of return, but you don't want it at risk. You're able to get it. So if some emergency comes up, or more exciting than emergency, what about opportunity? If an opportunity comes up, that's not what the 401k is for. That's what the savings money is for. So for us, we like a minimum recommendation of at least 1 year in the savings bucket. So that's the E, establish a savings bucket. The A is all expenses in wealth, all expenses covered by income. So this is how we're getting now. Got the foundation, we got our savings bucket set up. Now we're looking at having your expenses covered by income. Multiple ways to do that, but the point is, all expenses covered by income. Once we get to this piece, you're economically independent. You're financially free. How good would that feel? That's what this process can get you. And you can do this on your own. So the A is all expenses covered by income. That's the second bucket. The L in wealth is living with inflation. We do need growth. And the way to live with inflation is to get growth on the money. But we want the foundation set up first. We want savings, minimum 1 year. We want our income, ideally all expenses covered by income, rather. Minimum for us is 10 years. So we definitely want 10 years covered by income. Then we can go for growth. And whether that growth is buying a business, starting a business, buying real estate, investing in the market, investing in private placements, there's all kinds of ways that you can invest. On the growth piece, that's the third bucket, living with inflation. So we want to get a good rate of return on this growth money. But think about this for a minute. Going through a pandemic like happened in 2020, and there'll be more, not necessarily pandemics, but there's going to be more uncertainty in the future. I've heard it said like this, there'll be lots of BSTs in our economy, is a friend and colleague of mine said years ago, Tom Dorsey, and it stuck with me. BST, big scary things. Always big scary things. It doesn't matter, okay, this was COVID-19. What's the next? It's going to be something. And the point is, when you have the foundation in place and you have the savings covered, minimum 1 year, and you have income covered, minimum 10, then you have the growth piece. It really helps you navigate those type of situations, knowing you have a solid plan in place. So that's the 3-bucket approach as far as the Way2Wealth. And then lastly is T, which is tax diversification. We already talked about how do we set up a tax savings plan. We also want tax diversity. Why is this important? Well, first of all, taxes are all of our biggest expense. A lot of people will say my house or something else, but if you really look at the numbers, I bet you'll see that taxes are your biggest expense. So thinking about that, it's important that we really focus on it. So when I think of tax diversification, we're talking about tax deferred, taxable, and tax-free. And guess what we see? For the most part, there's a lot of money in tax deferred, and it's because that's what everyone talks about, maxing out 401ks. And I'm not saying any of these are bad. What I am saying is I think diversification makes sense, especially in the tax piece. Let me ask you a question. Do you think taxes are going up or down in the future? I don't know. I'm going to say probably up. That's what most people tell me. Well, if that's the case, and we have most of our money in tax deferred, a little bit in taxable, and hardly anything in tax free, how is that the best plan, and how are you going to navigate moving forward? So my idea of tax diversification is just the person with options wins. So having something in all three gives you options, and I think that's a solid way to plan for it. And then lastly, on Way2Wealth, I'm talking about have it updated annually. So once you put this thing in place, and again, you can do this on your own, and we're gonna be sharing ways to do that through these podcasts. So take them and use them as you see fit. This is literally how I run my family finances and have for years, what I'm sharing with you. This Way2Wealth process, 100% how we handle our family finances. So I know it works. So last is H, have it updated annually. So when you think of this, let me ask you a question. So looking at the Way2Wealth in general, I'll wrap things up a bit with where's all this headed, and have you think about something. So imagine for a moment that I offer you all the money that you would want. Let's say you just have this dream amount of money that, gosh, if I ever had this amount of money, it would be awesome. Life would just be unbelievable. So think that dollar figure. Now I say, I'm going to give it to you. Here's that amount of money. Cool? What if I said, once you get it, in exchange for that, you may have poorer health, you're going to be in miserable relationships, and you're going to feel completely unfulfilled. Would you take the money? Probably not. I know I wouldn't. No. Because that's not what we're really after. The money's a tool. It's energy. That's my point. So that's why what you're going to see with this podcast is, yes, we're going to talk about finances. We're going to make it simple, on purpose, intentionally. And we're going to wrap that in a wrapper of health, wealth, wisdom, and happiness. Because it's not the money. It's what you want, which is honestly, in my opinion, an overwhelming sense of well-being in all areas of your life. So that's why we're also going to talk about health. We're going to talk about wisdom. We're going to talk about happiness. And I'm going to interview guests. I'm going to interview the smartest people I know in finances wrapped in this Way2Wealth. And I'm also going to interview the smartest people I know. I'm passionate about this, and I'm always reading and learning in health. And when I think of health, here are the things that we focus on. So I look at health as spiritual health, mental health, and physical health. So we're going to be talking about different really smart people, interesting people I'm going to interview in those different modalities. When I look at wealth, this is the entry point. This is what people come to us about, is wealth. You're hearing our process. It's called the Way2Wealth. So when I look at wealth, it's being economically independent or financially free. We use the Way2Wealth personally to get there. Then in wealth, it's having enough. Like, when is enough? If you have enough, or if you feel like you have enough, you're wealthy. And then lastly, love is in wealth. My belief is it's all about love. And once you have love in your life, that's true wealth. That's what real wealth is. Then wisdom. Wisdom to me, that's the way. That's living in the present moment. That's like Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Like, the peace and the fulfillment is in the present moment. So we want to focus on that. And then if you look at wisdom, it's having experiences. Where does wisdom come from? Wisdom comes from having lots of experience. So go have a bunch of experiences. And then lastly, under wisdom, is being a lifelong learner. Just having a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, and continuing to learn and grow. It's what we're here to do. And then I think of health. There's three things I list there, and that is healthy relationships. And relationships are our teachers. Our closest relationships sometimes can be challenging. That's to teach us. That's for us to grow and help our partner grow. And so healthy relationships in all areas of life. Another piece of health is having a dream and a purpose that you're contributing to. I'm sharing mine. That's why I'm doing the podcast and launching it. It's sharing the way to wealth and making money simple so people can focus on all these things. But having that creates happiness, having a dream and a purpose that you feel like you're contributing to. And then lastly, being grateful. So each day, having something you're grateful for. Part of my morning routine and a meditation, I end with 3 things that I'm grateful for each day. There's so much, but that's where happiness comes from. So on that, that's the wrapper. You're going to hear some really cool interviews from some really cool people, not me, but the smartest people I know in these areas. And look, with the Way to Wealth and what this podcast is all about, as I wrap this up, is that it's all about making money simple, freeing you to be healthy, wealthy, wise, and happy, and to do that now. Thanks for checking it out. Look forward to episode 2. See you soon.
The opinions voiced in Way to Wealth with Scott Ford, Managing Director, Partner, and Wealth Advisor of Carson Wealth, are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Guests on Way to Wealth are not affiliated with CWM LLC or Cetera Advisor Networks LLC. Carson Wealth, 19833 Leitersburg Pike, Suite 1, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21742.